Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, and Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Good morning, and welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. I'm Ellie Cassetta, and I am the moderator for this morning's session with Dr. Jim Teneyck. We'd like to welcome everybody, and let me introduce myself just a quick moment. I am Eleanor Cassetta, and I am the author of One Caregiver's Journey, which is about my 9.5 years of caring for my mother when she broke her hip at the age of 93 and passed away here in my home at the age of 102. And my second book, which was recently published by Reader's Magnet, is Generations of Good Food, which is a compilation of 200 recipes spanning 6 generations of my mother's Italian family. I would like to thank Reader's Magnet management and staff for the extraordinary efforts of putting on this event. It is an extraordinary event in that it does allow authors to showcase their work, and it's focused on the authors and not on the publisher. We are streaming live on the Reader's Magnet Facebook page and on the Reader's Magnet YouTube channel. We invite you to visit booths and visit websites at www.thefestivalofstorytellers.com. On your screen, you can see that we have a chat box, and we invite all of our listeners and followers to please send questions for our author of the hour as this time goes on. So now I'm going to introduce our author. Our author of the hour is Dr. Jim Teneyck. Jim was born in and grew up in Somerville, New Jersey. He received a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania. He went to work for IBM in Endicott in 1964. And in 1968, he took leave to go to Syracuse, New York, to finish his master's degree in physics, which he had begun in IBM Extension. He continued on to receive his PhD in 1973 with a specialty in quantum electrodynamics. He had a relatively undistinguished academic career that included transition to computer science, a tenured position at the Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York, and he retired in 2007. After retirement, he felt he needed to do something more meaningful with his life, which he felt was a selfish impulse and disregarded the needs of his wife and family. He always had a desire to write and some ability to do it well, which I'm sure with that education. He was drawn to this particular title, an admiration for Walter Reuther, his affinity of the many causes he championed, and his irritation at seeing one set of politicians using the word liberal as a derogatory epithet, and the other set of politicians shying away from the identification with it and doing nothing to defend it. The book is The Life and Times of Walter Reuther. Walter Reuther was a central figure in many of the events, movements, and issues that defined mid-20th century America. The book is not strictly a biography of Reuther. It also provides a snapshot of the turbulent and momentous times in which he lived. It encapsulates Reuther's life in his formative years through his early organizing efforts to his rise in prominence in the United Auto Workers and as a national figure influenced with the democratic politics, the civil rights movement, and his authorship of plans to address diverse issues from war production, the Peace Corps, Health Corps, and nuclear power. He was a presence on the international stage as well. He toured India, was praised by Nehru in a diplomatic mission to soothe frayed tensions between the two countries. He had a contentious meeting with Mikoyan and Khrushchev in Russia. He was a friend and confidant of social democratic leaders of Western Europe and Israel. The book is organized into chapters describing the early history of the labor movement, the struggles of General Motors and Ford, World War II on the home front, the Treaty of Detroit, civil rights, Vietnam, the Great Society, and the aftermath reaction to the social upheaval of the 60s. It begins with the jump into modern era that occurred during the 2 decades surrounding the start of the 20th century with urban electrification, automobiles, flight, motion pictures, wireless relativity, and quantum mechanics. The United States was well positioned to take advantage of these developments and escape the devastation to its economy and infrastructure from the 2 world wars. It ends by examining how these advantages have changed in the 21st century. That, sir, is quite a lead-in. So with that, Mr. Teneyck, Dr. Teneyck, I invite you to tell us, sir, what gave you the inspiration to write this book?
Well, I guess you went through part of it. I well, first of all, I was looking for something to do after retirement. That I didn't I needed something to feel more fulfillment with what I accomplished in my life. The choice of Ruther was because it was someone that I admired. Uh, Especially seeing him on the stage or on the steps, let's say, of the Lincoln Memorial during the March on Washington. It was except for the people giving the invocations, etc. He was the one white voice that
Mm.
was, and also
We're having
Ellie.
some technical difficulties here. We're trying to get Jim back. Okay,
Okay,
Jim.
we're back.
Okay.
I decided to write this book, in some of the ways that Ellie described earlier. That I needed to do some after retirement project that my wife was born in Ireland, wanted to retire in Ireland. We had sort of planned that, but it never really became possible. So that's one of the disappointments about this. Uh, I chose Ruther because for the topic that we were discussing, he spanned the era from as a youth. He toured Europe at the time of the rise of Hitler. He landed in Hamburg on a boat, made his way to Berlin immediately after the Reichstag fire. He got involved with some socialist students in Berlin, shared an apartment that was raided right after Hitler consolidated his power in Germany. The people that they were really after were able to escape down down a bedsheet rope ladder outside of the back window while the brown shirts were coming up the front steps. They told him, it's a good idea that you move, get out of here. And he visited with relatives in Germany. He toured, I say he and his brother Victor went on this tour together. Ultimately, the end point was going to be the Gorky Auto Works. The Molotov Auto Works, it was called at the time in Gorky. He was waiting for the visa to come in, which took a long time. They toured most of Europe on bicycles. They toured Austria, Switzerland, Italy, through France, sleeping in haycocks or so forth along the road time, into England. They met some of the people that were going to become future, that had become friends and would become influential in their countries. And then, right after Roosevelt recognized the Soviet Union, the visas came in. They spent a year working in Gorky. They achieved the status of extraordinary workers, and that gave them traveling privileges that allowed them to tour the Caucasus area before they left, and then leave on the Trans-Siberian Railroad.
Was Russia communist at that time?
Oh yeah, it was communist. It was the plan was negotiated by the man you mentioned before, Anastas Mikoyan, and Ford. Higher ups at Ford for this technology transfer. It was going to produce a knockoff on a Model A model that Ford was no longer producing. So they were looking for foreign workers, etc. One of his experiences there was the working atmosphere at Ford was very rigid, very severe, let's say, that the Ford service department, the people that were keeping the order in the plant, were, would come down on people even talking with one another during work or even smiling sometimes. Whereas in Gorky, the atmosphere was much different. They had the lunch hour where they had dancing, and they had books around where people could read, etc. So, he was quite impressed with the work atmosphere in Gorky, and a lot of the Russian workers that were there had been peasants, were former peasants that were, brought into this, new opportunity for them. So his time at Gorky was not always distasteful by any means. So he came back. The story is, long, very interesting. If someone, one of the questions that was asked, could someone make a movie of this? Well, there were a number of episodes in Ruther's life that would be, material for a movie. But the whole thing would have to be a documentary, like something that Ken Burns or some documentary producer might produce. Going over many different episodes, at least more than a half a dozen different episodes in different phases.
So if it's a documentary, tell me about what some of the challenges are in writing a biography, especially with the amount of time that this particular biography spans.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily call it a challenge, but I came into this thought that Ruther was the central figure that spanned the entire era from the 1930s on to 1970, let's say, which we could say is the liberal era, going from FDR on through Johnson, I remember him as this figure on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, giving the address during the March on Washington, and in some of his other activities. Once you start doing the research in that, you start to separate, the man from this person that you sort of idolize. You take away all of the myth, and it becomes a man. And you see the frailties, you see, some of the contradictions between the image that you might have and, what the man was really like at the beginning. I guess his commitment to civil rights, one way of describing it was when he was running for the presidency of the UAW, was that the black newspaper in Michigan, I think it was the Michigan Chronicle was by name, endorsed him, but rather tepidly. That he's not Abraham Lincoln and he's not John Brown, but it would bring his presidency would bring stability to the union that it definitely needs, and he's basically like the best we got, kind of endorsement.
Was there any information you couldn't find? Was there any information that you had that you wanted to try to dig up on him that you were unable to get?
Not that I recall. No.
Okay.
There were things, that I thought I remembered. This week, well, let me just prelude this by saying, that the book is divided up into chapters with titles like The Cold War, Vietnam, the Great, I don't know if it's called The Great Society, but it's part of the Aftermath chapter, etc., civil rights, and so forth. So there's, the chapters are pretty much, I didn't write this book starting at chapter 1 and going through to the last chapter 15. I didn't write it in that order. I didn't necessarily even plan it to go into that order. It sort of fit into the order in which they appear in the book. The chapters like 2 through the formative years of Ruther and the unions, up through the strikes at General Motors and Ford, the war years, and the chapter I called The Treaty of Detroit which really refers to one particular labor negotiation that occurred in 1948, 49, I believe. But I use it to refer to the series of all of the labor negotiations, some of the ones that immediately preceded it and what happened afterward. That was probably the thing called the Treaty of Detroit, which Ruther broke, because the Korean War happened, to destabilize the environment, in which that treaty was organized. But after that, the negotiations between the UAW and the major auto companies became much more stylized. They formed a pattern. There weren't any strikes. The union knew what it could get. The union, the company had laid down boundaries where the union couldn't go, and then it was just really negotiating around those boundaries, usually for retirement pays, etc.
Did you have any surprises? I mean, were there surprises to you when you were writing this book?
Well, a couple of things that happened when I was writing, particularly in the chapter on Vietnam, was I remembered certain things that I thought had happened. I remember this was the late 60s. I thought it was 68. It couldn't have been. It had to have been earlier. But I remember I was home for Christmas at that time, visiting with my parents. And you didn't get the satellite broadcasts from the Vatican or anything. The Christmas Eve broadcast came from St. Patrick's in New York, and I remembered. I thought I had remembered that Cardinal Spellman, very hawkish, Catholic priest of that particular era, was. Giving the homily, and he was relating the scripture by Jesus to, if your enemy strikes you, turn the other cheek. And he somehow was turning that into a defense of the Vietnam War policy. And at the same time, I thought it was in the same series of broadcasts. There was a broadcast from a church in Greenwich Village where Boyd, what was his name? Are you running with me, Jesus? Malcolm Boyd, I think his name, giving an entirely different, Easter or Christmas message, namely about Herod sitting on his pentagonal throne and and that. I don't know. I tried to find, the reference to that particular sermon of Spellman. Well, he died right before Christmas in 1968, so he wasn't giving that sermon in 1968. In 67, he wasn't at St. Patrick's. He was in Vietnam, talking with the troops. And earlier than that, it doesn't seem, it may have been earlier, but I couldn't find any reference that had actually happened.
We have a question.
Oh, okay.
We have a question from Fairgoer 2278.
Hello, 2278.
There you go. And his question is, this particular question is, what's the most difficult part of writing a historical nonfiction book?
Oh, well, it involves a lot. For me, anyway, it involved a lot of research. I was a physicist. I was not a journalist. I was not a confederate of any of these people during the era. I lived through, not the 30s, but for much of the latter part of that era, and remembered, the details. I was active, a bit too active, for my career purposes, in the protest movements around the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights era, etc. So it was, the hardest part was, okay, here's the ideal Ruther that I sort of had the image of, and here's the real person, and equating them together. And as far as the civil rights is concerned, you say Ruther was a politician. His he was the leadership, let's say. Well, there were a lot of different factions within the UAW. When this factional war settled out, Ruther ended up with the more conservative board members that had formerly been involved with, the guy that replaced the original board member that the AFL had assigned to that job. So he had a fairly conservative set of board members that were his caucus. They let him, a lot of free rein as far as voicing his, his agenda. But there was only so far that they could go. Including blacks in the leadership of the UAW was very slow. So while he was on stage, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, the civil rights record within the UAW was not exemplary. I mentioned when he became the president, the tepid endorsement that he got from the Michigan Chronicle. The
Jim,
other thing, yeah,
we have another question here.
Okay, I'll come back to just finish that one briefly.
Okay. The question from Fairgoer 2274 is, what's your favorite part of this book?
Oh boy. Well, what I don't know, saying I have a favorite part. I exhibit some of the writing style, which is sort of off the main the time to reflect. You're developing this story, this historical story, and you're putting yourself into the mindset, the feelings, if you will, of some of the characters within the story. After the assassination attempts, Ruther's mother, who was, worried about his career and so forth, and said, okay, the assassination attempts weren't only on Walter Reuther, but Victor Reuther was shot, lost an eye, in an assassination attempt as well. After these attempts on the two brothers' life, the mother felt resigned that okay, I know this is your life's work. It's important to you. I don't want to stand in the way. And Reuther said he felt a great sense of relief. But I don't know his daughters, particularly. The youngest daughter was only about 2 at the time of the assassination. But the oldest daughter was, in her at least 6 or 7 years old. She was in school. Her life was completely changed. They had bodyguards, they had guard dogs, it kept her at a distance, let's say, from her friends and so forth. And I think it kept her at a bit of a distance from her father. She had a much closer relationship with her mother, at the time. So there was that aspect.
Did he stay married? Did he stay married, or did
his wife died in the same plane crash that he did?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were traveling together.
They did stay married.
Yeah, they did.
She did stay married, even though he was such a controversial figure.
Well, I don't know that he was a controversial figure to her. He was,
this question is going to be right up your alley, Dr. T.
Okay, let it have it.
All right. I know you have to do your research when you write a historical nonfiction book. So for Fairgoer 2278, did you say to me earlier before we went on that there were 150 pages of footnotes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I don't hold me to that exact number, but yes.
This individual wants to know, when you write a historical nonfiction book, Can you cite some of the sources that you used for this book?
Oh boy. There were a lot of different chapters. There was for instance, the Cold War chapter. I have some of the Cold War episodes were in Guatemala, the replacement of the Arbenz government there, and in Iran, and the restoration of the Shah in Iran. So there was. I can't, tell you the name. There was a book by an Egyptian author that was covering that period of history in Iran. But there was also articles from that were released from the CIA and reprinted pretty much the same way as in the New York Times. So there were the articles from what was released. Excuse me, I'm talking myself.
Okay, that's all right. You just take a swig of coffee there. That's just absolutely fine. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so there were those kind of documents that healthcare documents. There were different sources. The American. I have to. I can't come up with all of the.
So how about did you use sources for this, like the civil rights movement and Vietnam, or did you just?
I used sources.
Those were history.
Okay. Yeah, no.
Okay.
One of the things in the Vietnam was that the ideal leader that the United States wanted to project in Asia was Raymond Magsaysay, who was a guerrilla leader in the Philippines fighting the Japanese, and he became the defense minister, and then with some CIA help, the guy he was running against was also a pro-American politician in the Philippines, but he was promoted. He became the president of the Philippines, but as defense minister, he was fighting the insurgency movement, the Huks. There was a communist insurgency that also was fighting the Japanese during the occupation, and thought that they didn't get what they should have, in terms of what their influence was within the country. So he defeated the Huks. Land grants. He did all of the things in the Philippines that weren't done, let's say, in Vietnam, as far as trying to, initially, the villagers in the Philippines were as afraid of the government as they were of the Huks. So they were terrorized by both sides. He changed that dynamic, and for Huks members that wanted to give up, there was land grants in areas of Mindanao and so forth that needed more people. He was their ideal. The CIA agent that was working with him in the Philippines was a man by the name of Lando. He transferred to Vietnam. The leader there that the United States was supporting was Diem, Ngo Dinh Diem. I looked at the biographies of both people, and they were sort of totally the opposite. Diem was in a convent in Washington during the war. Not that he wasn't brave, but he was the son of mandarins that worked in the court of the emperor, whereas Magsaysay was the son of his mother was a school teacher and his father was a tradesman of some sort. They're totally different backgrounds, totally different personalities. Diem was very introverted. He relied on his brothers, one of which was the Catholic bishop of Hue, I believe, but he would spend more of his time in Saigon with the family. And his other brother, Ngo Dinh Nhu, who was a leader of you know, it was always during, well, this spans both the Eisenhower years and the Kennedy years, but,
So what is
during
the relevance? What is the relevance of Walter Reuther's events in your book to what's occurring in our world today?
Okay, I thought you were going to say in Vietnam, and in that case, that was
today.
relatively
because you're talking about you're coming from Kennedy into Johnson, and
I'm coming.
So how does that relate to the relevance of the events? How does Walter Reuther events in your book relate to today?
Well, I guess most directly, the unfinished projects that were left at the time was the healthcare project. He had an initiative that he started toward the end of his life, unbeknownst, but toward the end of his life, the Committee of the 100, and that became a group that supported, provided Ted Kennedy with his initial healthcare proposal. So, Reuther approached Kennedy at the start of '68, just after the election. Told him, "I'd like you to be the chair of the health committee. Would you consider being the chair of the health committee?" Said, "No, I would, but I'm going to have education. My Claiborne Pell is going to be the chair of the health committee." And then lo and behold, a couple days later, Claiborne Pell decides to become heading the Committee on Education, and now we have the Pell Grants. And Kennedy gets the Committee on Healthcare. So he was a very influential figure within the Democratic Party itself. And the Committee of 100 was going to be headed by Michael DeBakey, the heart surgeon, the civil rights leader, Whitney Young, who was the head of the Urban League, and a medical researcher, Mary Lasker. It became the National Health Insurance Committee. It assumed a different name, but its proposal was closer to the kind of proposals that you have in the European nation, more of a national health plan. Reuther died. The nominal leaders were just that, nominal leaders, and the labor initiative was never realized in the particular form that it did. But health care is a continuing problem. The environmental movement, if Reuther had lived, he was set to retire at 65. He set a mandatory retirement age in the UAW. So he would have been about 3 years away from retirement, in which I think his cause probably would have been environmental movement, at least initially. And, the environmental movement initially was as much about pollution as it was about, climate change. That was something, just sort of on the, horizon, let's say, of the people that were actually the researchers in the field.
And that's how it is today.
Well, yeah. I mean, I had my little bit. A lot of some of the writing is stuff that I interject of myself in this. So the thing I'd say on climate change was, you take a piece of paper, you draw a line down the middle, we'll make it down the middle just for sake, and say everything to the left of that line is for the people not for the people, but for the fact that climate change is happening because of human activities, et cetera, et cetera. So say real. Climate change is real, caused by human activity. The other side is that it's not caused by human activity. It's just maybe there's temporary fluctuations in the climate that go on all the time. So real on one side, not real on the other. and then you draw a line across horizontally across the page and say, we're going to do something about it or we're not. So you got the 4 quadrants, and you look at what probability do you assign to each of these quadrants? Well, as far as where to put that vertical line versus real versus not real, all of the people are more than 90%. It's more than 95%, but I think I use 95 or 90. So just the people that are actually doing research in climate science, not necessarily on other scientists like maybe I, that didn't have any research in that, believe that climate change is real, that we have these possibly catastrophic effects that are going to occur. So you got 90, whatever I put it at, say 90, 95% believe real, 5% or whatever not real. Then you have, are we going to do anything about it? And that's where the public comes in. What is the public perspective? Let's call it 50-50. The 50% of the public believes that it's real and 50% of it doesn't. That just applies to this country, but you'd have to extend this around. But this country should be a leader,
Yes.
in combating climate change. So you then try to put up the costs. What if it's real and we do nothing about it? The cost could be immense. All of the different things that happen. If it's not real and we do something about it, we spend this extra money. We get maybe a better electric grid out of it. We get more solar power, more sustainable fuels, and probably less pollution. But the cost of it being real or not real and doing nothing is minimal. Then it's on the other side. What if we do something about it? I'm sorry, that was the something. If we do something about it and it's not real, then you can't say we're just even wasting that money because we do get some benefits out of it. Not real, real and nothing. We do nothing about it. That's catastrophic. And if it's the other quarter, it's that's not real and do nothing about it. If it's real and we do nothing about it, those costs will be very catastrophic. So you try to figure out, put some dollar figures into each of these categories, look at the probabilities, and then say, what's the effect? And it's something you would have, sort of a numbers game that you would have to play periodically. Do we have to do, what do we do about it this year? What do we do about it next year, et cetera? And, the percentages might change from year to year, et cetera. But, the overall cost is like buying insurance. So instead of taking it as is climate change real or is it not, when you go out and buy insurance, when you're young and just married and have children, you don't expect just to die. You hope you're not going to die. But if you do, you buy insurance just in case. So it's sort of the same idea that you need to buy insurance that, okay, if you're wrong, if you're a climate denier and you're wrong, the cost is going to be catastrophic. If you're a climate denier and you're right, well, then you're paying this insurance money that you didn't have to pay, but you have the comfort of that existence. So that's something I had in the book. I go back to the first chapter, the American century, and look at some of the American voices. The little poem that I use at the top of the page is Kipling, Take Up the White Man's Burden. And, that's the belief widespread, not just in America, of, the superiority of the white race over the black races and the brown races, and also the superiority of the Anglo, Northern European culture over other cultures. Widespread. There was the famous anthropologist at Harvard at the time, Agassiz. was believed that in social Darwinism. So I have quotes from Henry Adams where he's expressing his anti-Semitism. And just looking at the immigrants in Boston and seeing the Jewish immigrants in their dress and in their Yiddish or whatever they were speaking, and a quote from an Indiana senator where he's extolling, America's role. In other words, he was going Kipling one step further, and that somehow that we've been endowed by God or commanded by God to take up this role, in the world, and that we should be civilizing the rest of mankind, etc. This is prior to the Spanish-American War at the time of it. What we're going to do about it. Roosevelt, one of the worst examples in the book is a man by the name of Madison Grant, who wrote a book about the decline of the great race, or I think it was called, and it was talking about sterilization, that sterilizing, starting with the criminals and the criminally insane or the insane, and then maybe working its way up to other weaklings, undesirables, and maybe some undesirable races. And it was a bestseller. It got good reviews, let's say, from Teddy Roosevelt. It got good reviews from Tom Buchanan, the fictional Tom Buchanan in The Great Gatsby, and it got a fan letter from Hitler. It was much of Mein Kampf was inspired by this book. So those were some of the voices that were around at the top of the century. There was the Chinese Exclusion Act, and various other things that were occurring then. To what extent is that still occurring? How much of these sentiments are still in the dialogue today? So I think it has a relevance there.
Tell me this: you're such obviously you're such a historian. Are you planning to pursue any further publications?
Well, in this genre, no, I wouldn't be able to. Since I wrote this book, I have macular degeneration, and it's my eyes are becoming more degenerate, let's say. So when I was trying to read the chat comments and so forth before, I had my little magnifying glass to try to be able to read. And so I wouldn't be able to do research. I wouldn't be able to write a large manuscript. So my writing is poetry. I started off writing poetry when I was some of the time when I was working at IBM. And that's what I've been writing lately.
Show our viewers your book.
My book. Okay. Well, remember, now this is a book. It's a big book. I told one of the things is I think the number of pages might exceed the number that would be the size that would be expected by the actual number of words, which I don't remember, but is less than many of similar sized books. Well, similar books that actually look a little bit smaller, and then the last 150 or more pages include are just the footnotes and the reference names.
There you go. So to our viewer who asked to cite the sources. If you have like 150 pages of footnotes.
I can't remember them all. I mean, the main sources on Ruther, there's a book by Lichtenstein, The Most Dangerous Man in Detroit. That was a quote from George Romney, about Ruther. Romney at that point, I think, was either an agent for the auto companies, or he was the president. I don't know about the owner, the president of American Motors.
So would your family, how does your family feel about your writing? Would they help you publish some of your poetry?
My family. Well, unfortunately, my wife just died a couple of months ago.
And do you have children?
I have one child. I have he has three grandchildren. They're living in France.
Oh, nice.
After this is, I finished today, I guess is the last day of the festival.
Yes, sir.
I have to finalize my plans. I'm going to go there for Christmas and into
Oh,
January.
good for
So,
you.
yeah. And, he would be helping me with some, he was really good. He made a beautiful memorial video for Veronica. And we're going to try to do something like that for publicizing this book, or the poets, both. And
It
I
would
guess,
be you're just such an interesting individual and so full of knowledge and history. It would be nice, Dr. Teneyck, if they could publish your poems, because you had told me your poetry is very different from what we call poetry today.
well, I don't know if it's different, but it's more, the poetry of today is sort of trying to distance itself from the poetry that, some of the stuff that I write. I mean, it goes more traditional vein, sonnets and the sextuplets and so forth. But I write. My poetry is pretty eclectic. A lot of volumes of poetry are along one particular theme. I guess one of the things that I see with poetry today is, I get the poetry magazine. I'm scarcely able to read it anymore, but a lot of it is just, I think, is crap. There's some good stuff, but it's people like writing poems into shapes. The shape of a person, the shape of a thing. So it's not so much the poetry at all that counts. It's, well, here's how it's displayed. Or a lot of it is, I think, is largely prose. It just sort of goes on, and there's no real line break or anything like that. It reads like prose, and some of that gets rewarded. There's some good poetry that you see in there as well. But you know, the the stuff like there's more or less a whole a lot of people majoring in Masters of Fine Arts that come out my son teaches English literature in France, and he's the same thing. He's that these people have infiltrated the academic ranks, that get a residency or whatever at a particular university, and then clone people like themselves. And
Well, that will give you something to argue with him about when you're in France.
Well, no, he agrees with me.
Oh, he agrees with you.
He's not. Well, no, he just teaches English literature and I guess an American history, which I guess he does because he's an American, and so he must know something about American history.
Well, he's got a father who certainly knows a lot about American history, no doubt.
Well, that's stages of it.
Tell me this. We've got 5 minutes before we wrap up. You wanted to invite the fairgoers to get copies of some of your stuff. Would you like to do that? And then
I would.
I will wrap us up here, sir.
Okay. Well, I have posted, I guess, on links from Google Drive or through Safari on my bookstall page in the fairgoers in the festival lineup. I have samples of the writings. Samples, the excerpts from the book are some of not so much are my reflections on certain things within the book.
Well, all right. So we have a chat that asked if you can share some short lines of your poems.
They're there on that page. In other words, you want me to recite one?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go with At Sea. He walks the pier each morn, the harbor to his left, the bailey and the open sea before. Once the captain of his sail, he knows the hours of the tides. He knows the hours of the tide along the shore. The warnings in the sky, the signs that tell a sailor when to hoist or trim the sails. He knows the pattern of the lights and color code from Wexford up to Belfast on to Wales. Today, the moment is a cloud that floats away. Tomorrow hangs like fog upon the way. The past is anchored in the verse he learned to say by rote in grammar school and somehow save in his deserted village where, in row by row, the master sees the empty spaces grow.
Wow.
The deserted village was, he was always quoting poems, mostly from his past, couple of Eagles lyrics, and so he liked the Eagles. He quoted the lines from The Deserted Village, particularly the part about the schoolmaster. So,
my gosh. For our viewers today, I thank you, Dr. Teneyck. I have to say that you are truly remarkable in your vast knowledge of the life and times of one individual who so dramatically shaped the events of the last century. And that's been the message of the story and the book of the life and times. I'm going to get this right here. The life and times of Walter Reuther. Jim is this is just phenomenal and fascinating. This man didn't just stay in the United States. He traveled the world. He brought his advocacy for around the world.
Yes, he did. Actually, one thing you said earlier, his meeting with Khrushchev and Mikoyan were both here. Not at the same time, but Mikoyan was preparing the visit for Khrushchev, and Khrushchev visited this rather contentious meeting with Khrushchev was in San Francisco.
Okay, so they were in this country.
At that time, yeah.
Wow, they were in this country. I sincerely thank our fairgoers for coming this morning. It's early where I am, and coming to participate in the Festival of Storytellers and to listen to the remarkable remarks of Dr. Teneyck and his life, as well as his book. I mean, your book is, you certainly do travel through some of the most contentious times in this country with unions and the United Auto Workers, with politics, the Peace Corps, the war production, the healthcare movement, the civil rights movement, especially, which is still somewhat very much at the forefront today. I'd like to invite all of we have less than a minute here. I would like to invite all of our fairgoers to, today is the last day to visit our booths. My booth is One Caregiver's Journey, Generations of Good Food. And Jim, do you have a booth? Is it
I have a booth? Yeah.
Okay. It's the Life and Times of Walter Reuther.
And that's where you would find the samples from the book and the poetry.
Okay.
And I'm on again tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern time.
6 o'clock Eastern time, and I'm on tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern time.
Oh, wow.
And I'm on this afternoon at 3.
Okay.
With that, I thank you, sir, very, very much. I thank you for opening the last day. And remember, at Reader's Magnet, we share your stories with the world. Thank you all, and have a great Sunday.
Thank you.